So I have all the strips cut for this weighted blanket, and I am chain sewing them together. I have marked with an iron where I will be sewing down through, and all of this is to keep from sewing separate bean bags, 5 by 5 or 4 by 4 or however. So I've chain sewn the outside edge, and I'm pulling them back down, trying to keep them in order. And I'm going to start at the top and chain sew all of them down my first section. And as soon as I get those 10 sections sewn, then we'll go to the next step of sewing across the top and leaving an open space so that we can fill each bag. I'm going to set the stitches at the bottom of each corner so that the pellets can't migrate out or fall at the edge. And just going right on down to the next strip. After the sections are all sewn with the segments, these have all been cut apart from the 12 sections. That's what it's taking to fill this particular weighted blanket. Each of the outside segments will have batting or padding in them rather than the pellets. So I'm going to leave the outside open to be stuffed with the stuffing. And then sew part of remaining segments, leaving a segment open so I can stuff it. I'll be using a funnel to hopefully don't get the beads all over everything. Pellets. And this is a whole lot easier than trying to sew the whole thing after you get the pellets in. At least that's what my mind's telling me. We'll see when we get down to the business of it. And that is done, and I'm leaving the outside section unsewn so that I can just stuff padding in there. For this particular blanket, it's for a person that's 130 pounds, so it's taking 13 pounds of pellets. You put 10% of the person's weight into the blanket. The inner segments will be loaded with the pellets. And there again, for this blanket, this is taking 12 strips in length, and there are 12 segments across. About 5 inches by 5 inches. I'm doing it this way because I thought it would be easier than 100 separate bean bags. So we shall see. This is one of the strips. I've already stuffed the outside sections and left the inner tin empty. And now I'm going to go into the scientific math that I went into. It seems as though each of these segments, each of these sections is going to have about 2.3 ounces of pellets. I did all that math in my own little head. So if I'm a pellet or two off here and there, I don't think anybody will notice. If they do, they need to find something else to do. So now that these are done, I'm going to put the pellets into each one and then sew across and close before they're sewn onto the fleece. I have one more strip to go, so that will be 10. Here is the batting section and the 10 filled sections. I came to the conclusion each of these should weigh 1.33 pounds. That's after I got several done and they were a little light. I need about almost 2/3 cup. Having the right size funnel helps. I still think this is better than sewing over 100 separate bean bags. So if you want to sew 100 separate bean bags, then you go for it. The strips will be sewn to the inside of the blanket. And again, I'm using fleece because it's 60 inches wide. It has a nice feel to it. It's easy to work with. And it took almost 4 yards. This is for an adult. And even doing it this way and just using fleece, it's still rather an intense job. A little more than norm. But if it works, this is okay. Now I've had this roll of like cheesecloth for years I've used off of, and this is what I made my strips out of. If you have an old sheet or a scrap fabric or anything you want to use, you can use that and strip it up. This was 11.5 inches wide, so that's the measurement I used. And I cut them 60 inches wide because that's the width of the fleece. This fleece is a nice 60 inches wide, and there are almost 2 yards on the back, and there will be 2 yards that will be sewn on for the front. But right now we're going to work on the back, get the strips, the pellet strips sewn on, and the padded strips, and then we'll go to the front. And these are the pellet strips. And I'll show you how those go. This is, like I said, this is, let's say this is the top. This will be the next strip sewn on. And if you will note, the padded section on the pellet strips, this outside section is going to line up with the outside of the padded section. So the whole bottom of the weighted blanket will be padded, this whole section. Both sides will also be padded. There'll be no pellets over here. And that's for the comfort of the person that's using the blanket. So I'll sew this on, and then I'll get the rest of the strips sewn on.